Good morning, Ian Quick, Millionaire by 50. It is Tuesday, July 7th. So, yesterday we started to step away from the mindset stuff. Still important to do every morning. I just reread my wants, and I've been trying to recognize the laws of the universe whenever they occur. Um, be better with it. I think the more I do it, the better I will be. I just got to keep doing it. But we started talking about more practical stuff, and we started talking about how one accumulates wealth. There's only so many ways to do so. Um, I've got focuses on my business right now. I'll be doing back and forth between this and investing for the foreseeable future because that's mainly how I plan to do this. Um, but um, my, um, what am I trying to say here? My improved customer service plan um, is in motion. The next step is occurring on Friday when I have, when I have a colleague come and help me film. So in the meantime, until that progresses, um, I thought I'd talk a little bit about investing. Investing is both really simple and really complicated. Um, the principle is incredibly simple. The execution of that principle requires a lot of effort. Um, Effort both in the sense of um, doing research, doing calculations, but also effort in the sense of coming to terms with taking that risk. And I want to talk about that first. We're still going to do mindset before we start to go into details because there's a lot of details. Investing is tough because the successful investors are people who play the long game. Not that you can't have success with a short game, but it takes a special kind of person to do that who monitors the market constantly. You pretty much live, breathe, and die. Excuse me. The stock market, and that's not the life I want. That becomes a full time business. There, that's not what I want to do. But there are plenty of successful investors who are in for the long game. The most famous, obviously, being Warren Buffett. Um, and this is what I want to learn to do. We'll talk more about details later, but if you want a really good read on this, I'm going to read a book called Rule One by Phil Town. Tremendous amount of advice, and this is the book I will be relying on uh, first and foremost when it comes to investing practices. But um, Phil's daughter Danielle also wrote a book. I'm trying to remember what it was called here. I've got it written somewhere. And it was called. Where did I put this? I apologize for the dead air. Oh, it's called Invested by Danielle Tim. Also a very good book to read. I've read both. I read Danielle's first because that was the one we had on hand, and that introduced me to Phil's. And I think Danielle's book is an important read because Danielle's book is about her journey to become an investor. Phil's book is a very is like a how-to manual. This is what you got to do. Bang, 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 bang. Lays down the math, lays down the principles behind it. It is phenomenal information. Danielle does that too, but she focuses less on the technical aspect and more about her journey, which was really about changing her mindset. And I think it's still important to talk about that because ultimately, when you have a how-to book, but you don't know how you feel about it, how you really feel deep down on the inside about it, you kind of like flounder. It's, I don't know, I don't want to take this risk, and so forth. So Danielle's book is really good about that. She talks about overcoming uh, conscious and subconscious fears, about taking that risk. Are you really ready? Because let's face it, you work hard to earn the money you have now. And then say, I'm going to take all of it, pretend it doesn't exist as far as my spending capital is concerned, and just go ahead and put it in stock and hope for the best that that stock goes up, not down. That's a scary prospect because nobody wants to say, hey, here's $10,000 I'm just going to throw away. Um, it's really, really scary. But at the same time, once you do it, it's incredibly, I would imagine, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but the way she describes it, it's very um, liberating once you accept it and not worry about it and stop fretting every time you look at yourself. Oh my God, it's gone up by to 10 cents, and oh, it's going down by 20. Oh my God, I'm losing. No, uh, she had to change her mindset about how to become wealthy. She was a successful lawyer, making good money, but like most people, the more money you make, the more you have an expensive lifestyle, and you still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck. And despite having a really good job, she had no money. And, stuff about investing in mutual funds, and we'll talk about that later. Oh boy, don't go there. Um, it just seemed like she'd be a slave to work forever and have very little to retire on. And I know that feeling. Uh, I, up until very recently, didn't have any savings at all. Uh, Now I have some. Unfortunately, I've had to dip into those savings because of Corona, but at least they're there. Without that, I really don't know what I would have done. And it's a very, very scary process. But ultimately, it comes down to this: you need to trust in yourself, in your judgment, in the work you've done, and ultimately take that leap of faith. I want to tell you that that is difficult for me. Faith is a very difficult thing for me. I grew up in a very, very incredibly religious upbringing. So faith to me always had that connotation of religious faith, which is something I do not buy into at all. Um, so actually, I think faith is probably bad, not the term I'd like to use to get comfortable with it. Because faith is based on nothing, whereas trust is based on repeated, proven patterns. You know, I trust that something will work this way because it always has. It's proven itself to be reliable. The problem with investing money is when you first start it, nothing is reliable. So what you can do is take the advice of people who have been following this for a long time and trust that advice works. And that's a hard thing to do. If you don't actually know these people, you just read this book and you're like, can I really do this? But what if? And the tough thing with that too is you read what these experts say and you're like, yeah, well maybe I'd like this, but I'd like to do this at the same time. It's more comfortable for me. And you wind up changing the formula based on gut feelings that are fear founded. And then it doesn't work, and then you convince yourself, see, I was right, it doesn't work. These guys are just getting, no, you didn't do what these guys said. You twisted what they said to satisfy that little fear voice inside you. And then it failed because you weren't able to commit and do this properly. And that's a tough prospect. It's a scary prospect. So I really have to make sure that I don't listen to my gut, that fear gut. I should say. But I listen to the training. I listen to the numbers. I listen to um, the facts laid before me. Now, we all like to think that when we listen to facts, we're not swayed by emotion. We're more rational than that. But if anything has been proven lately, is that most people in the world don't behave rationally. Despite the COVID 19 data, uh, how many COVIDiots are out there right now um, embracing falsehoods because it speaks to their belief system rather than looking at facts. Um, and I'm not even going to get to the political aspect down in the States, but again, it's like, wow. So humankind really has an issue with um, listening to self-sustained beliefs rather than facts. And that's because your paradigms are set that way. It's been ingrained in us for a long time. And if your paradigm is that no, this is the way things are, regardless of whatever evidence is put in front of you, you don't do it. So when it comes to money, when it comes to investing, whatever feelings, whatever fears we have about money can greatly sway what the experts are saying uh, if they're not in sync. And it's really, really up to us to drop our preconceived notions, drop our paradigms, drop our fears, and listen to the experts. Uh, One of the things I have listened is don't rush it. You know, so people are like, quick, quick, the stock's gonna go up, buy now, buy now, buy now. Worst thing you can do. Worst thing you can do. Don't buy stocks on a whim. Uh, I might be paraphrasing here a bit, but with the advice, buy great stock at a good price. Sorry, buy a great company at a good price, then buy a mediocre company at a great price. So great stock at a great company at a good price rather than mediocre company at a great price. What that means is, um, the idea, of course, is to buy low and sell high. Now, if a company's stock is super, super cheap and you know it's going to great for short term, but long term, if that's not a good company, that company's going to do this and crash, not even be around. A great company is going to stay up here. And occasionally it dips because there are certain market conditions out there. Now, did it plummet down and you get it dirt cheap? No. But did it dip in price? It's good for you. Yes. And then, of course, it comes back up and keeps going like that. That's what you want. A great company that you know 20 years from now is still going to be doing great. But there's so much more involved like that too. All of a sudden, I was convinced in my mind a certain company. Oh, this sounds like a great company. This is something that I'm into. This is a company that's been having success forever, and so forth. And I was really into the idea of buying Disney stock. They acquired Marvel and Fox and Star Wars, and they keep growing and growing and all this. And they sound great on paper. Uh, but then I did more research and I discovered certain aspects about it where the growth is really not that great. They keep producing, but they keep doing other stuff too. And ultimately, um, it's a stock that does not produce that much yield. Its moat, which we'll talk about at one point later, is a lot weaker than I thought it would be. It's strong in certain aspects, but very, very weak in others. And it turns out not a company to buy. And did research at one point, and Warren Buffett owned Disney, past tense, owned. He doesn't own any now. He got rid of that stock at one point. And this is a guy who doesn't get rid of stock unless there's a really good reason for it because he likes to hang on to it. I'm not saying Disney's a bad company by any means. Uh, um, is not that great. At one point, if your stock is not producing enough of a return, why keep it? You know, the idea is to get stuff that yields 20% return or more. If you're only getting 5 or 6, might as well buy an index fund. That'll get you at least 10. Uh, so for the long, might be great, but it isn't now. So patience is really, really important. That's the first lesson. Don't jump into things. And at one point I was thinking to myself, was that the fear talking again? And I realized, no, that wasn't the fear, that was the homework. Because to me, the fear was saying, buy it now before it's too late. Stocks plummeted everywhere back in March when coronavirus first hit. It was like, buy now, buy now, buy now. But you gotta buy the right thing. So I think I'm over the fear paradigm. I have to get past the research issues and learn more before I fully trust my money to be invested properly. I also don't want to wait forever because as time progresses, you lose your wonderful compound interest, which we'll talk about later. But I still feel that I need to take the time I need to take in order to do this and get my education. I've been rambling, haven't I? So ultimately, before you invest, get control of your mental state, get control of your fears, and know what you're acting from. Are you acting from a place of fear or a place of knowledge? Are you hesitating because you're uncertain, or are you hesitating because you know that what you've learned says now's not the time? Very, very different aspects. Anyways, I'll try to make more sense of this as time progresses. Grateful for whatever potential today brings. A potential, I have a potential corporate event coming up uh, shortly that I'm excited about because that means money. Yay! Uh, I'm grateful for my family as always. And I'm grateful that I can do this and sound out ideas, even if sometimes my thought isn't particularly coherent. I apologize to anybody watching this today who might say, oh, he's been all over the place. It'll make sense. Anyways, on that note, see you tomorrow.